Thanks, Jackie. I'm about to switch over, so I'm not going to be able to see. So if something goes wrong, holler at me.
Yep, for sure. And those of you who have questions, you can put it in the chat, and Katie will give time and the team will give time for questions after.
Yeah, so like Jackie said, we are the HWA strike team for the 2021-2022 season. We work under the Tennessee Division of Forestry. This program was created in 2014, and it's a seasonal position. We work from March through May, which are the months where the treatment is most effective.
October through May.
What'd I say, November?
March.
October. Oh, yeah. October through May. So this program has 40 different hemlock conservation areas in state parks, forests, conservation easements, and natural areas. And we're really excited because this is the first year we are treating on TWRA land. So some of our conservation areas are already in their second round of treatment. Some of them, like the TWRA land we're visiting for the first time. And our goal for this season is 1,200 acres spread across 16 different conservation areas. Hope, we can't hear you.
Okay,
oh, we can hear you. Yeah, we can hear you now, Hope.
Okay, did the slides change for anyone else, or is it still on the first one?
Nope, I can see treatment options.
Oh, okay, it's not showing.
Yeah, it's frozen for me too. Oh, there it goes.
There we go. Awesome. Okay, so there are a lot of chemical treatment options for HWA. There's stem injection, which works really well for larger trees near, actually directly on streams some of the times. And then there's basal bark application, which helps with uptake, and soil injection, Cortec tablets, which are great during drought, foliar spray, which works really well in controlled settings, and then the one we're most familiar with, which is soil drench. And there's two main chemicals that are used, of the more effective chemicals. The one we use is imidacloprid because it works the best for our objectives and goals. The main pro of imidacloprid is that it lasts up to like 5 to 7 years, I think. Dinotenephrine is also useful. There's a lot faster uptake. I think it's maybe like 2 to 3 weeks, where imidacloprid can be up to a year. And then on the left, you can see stem injection, and then in the lower photo, that is all the equipment we use in the field. And what we actually do is we use what we call the acre grid method, and we'll go into an area that we have a map of, and it will be broken up into acres, which will allow us to stick to the 181 ounces we are allotted per acre. The first thing we do when we get into a stand that has potential for treatment is we'll look at the composition and kind of decide whether there's enough hemlocks that are ecologically significant and have recovery potential that will go in there and treat. And then once we've decided we're going to treat, we'll choose trees that have greater than 30% of their crown left. And then once we've determined specific trees, we'll go in and measure the DBH, and we use Dr. Elizabeth McCarty's optimized insecticide dosage recommendations. And that allows us to use chemical in the most effective and efficient way possible. And on the right here, you can see our DBH tape, and it's like our little cheat sheet. And in the white, it shows DBH, and on the right in the gray, it shows the corresponding number of ounces that you would use for each tree.
So we usually split our weeks into marking days and treating days. Marking days are when we select the trees that we want to treat. And as Hope said, we will pick trees that we think will be the most successful and that are of the greatest ecological importance in the area. So we'll first measure the tree with our DBH tapes, and then we'll flag that tree with pink flagging, as you can see on the right, and we'll record the DBH and the amount of chemical needed to treat the tree on the flagging, as well as in our notepad. We are constantly keeping track of how much chemical we can use per acre because we need to stay under the 181 ounces per acre rule. And we'll be considering the soil, whether it's sandy or rocky and can actually be treated, and the distance from water. We cannot treat within 10 feet of a water source. So in addition to avoiding trees that are right along streams, we'll also look at drainages, runoff areas, and consider whether or not we're in a flood zone. Sometimes an acre is very dense with hemlocks and we can't actually get all the trees due to our limit. So in that case, we do have to pick and choose which hemlocks we're going to flag for treatment. And we'll try and maintain connection throughout the stand, but we will note that future crews should come back to that specific acre so that they can treat the trees that we were unable to get. We use Avenza maps so that we can see the acre grids and we will record our tracks in there. And this is how we know how much chemical we can use in an area. We'll check Avenza and we'll communicate with other members of the crew to make sure that we're not exceeding our 181 ounce limit. So sometimes we'll have 2 people working in an acre together, and then we'll plan to each only use 90 ounces. This is a screenshot of our Avenza tracks from 2 weeks of working at Myatt Creek in Catoosa Wildlife Management Area. And this is actually all 4 of the crew's tracks compiled. So the black is 1 week and the blue is another week. And you can see we've covered nearly everything that's adjacent to the creek. And there were times when multiple people were in the same acre. So that's when we're communicating on our walkie-talkies and making sure that we're not exceeding our 181 ounces. So after we record all of this data in our notepads, we digitize it and we can see a summary of the work that we've done. For example, this is our data from one day working at Fall Creek Falls, where we marked 56 total acres and there were 548 trees in those acres. You can see the average DBH and the chemical totals, which helps us plan for treating day, so we know exactly how much water-soluble packets we need to bring into the field with us. But it also helps us quality control, and we can check if we've exceeded our limit. We'll have a negative number in the remaining column, and then we'll know that we need to correct that. So if that does happen, we'll go out and we'll remove flagging and make sure that we're under our limit.
All right. For preparing our chemical, we mix all our chemical in the field. We use 2-gallon jugs here. You can see on the right. We put 4 or 8 1.6 ounce water soluble packets. And we always make sure we're 100 feet away from any water sources, floodplains, or anywhere that the water could get in contact with the chemical if it were to come out. And our mixing proportion is 1.6 water soluble packets, 1.6 ounce water soluble packets per 34 ounces of chemical. And yeah, but we put 8 in the 2-gallon jugs, and then we mix it with the water that we get by nearby streams. For treating day, we go back to where we flagged, and we check our flagging that we have on the tree to know how much chemical to put on the surface of the ground there. And we cut down or remove any flowering plants within 3 feet of the tree. And we remove the duff layer to get down to bare soil surface, and then we pour our chemical from our Nalgene's. And then we replace the duff layer and leaf litter back, and then we mark our tree. And our color marking system corresponds to the treatment progression, not the years that they've been treated. And the color is determined on a stand level throughout our HCAs. And then we remove our flagging and then head to the next tree.
So this is a summary of what we've accomplished so far. So far this season, we've visited 10 different HCAs, treated 674 acres. So we're more than halfway to our goal of 1,200. And we've treated over 6,000 trees, which is pretty exciting. So these are the HCAs that we are visiting this season. The ones in red are the ones that we have already visited, and the ones that are in black are the ones we still have to visit. It was really interesting going to Roan Mountain and Bays Mountain on the eastern side of the state, because the trees over there were definitely more heavily infested, already starting to decline compared to those that are on the plateau. So, I mean, it was really a cool example of how the spread is really coming from the east and going to the west.
So we're going to highlight some of the hemlock conservation areas that we have already visited this season. Fall Creek Falls State Park is actually where we were trained, and we have been there a total of 4 times to treat hemlocks, and this is where we've treated the most acres so far. The picture on the left demonstrates some of the better canopy connection that we've seen this season. And Fall Creek Falls overall has really healthy hemlocks as long as they have been treated. But the picture on the right shows the difference between a tree that a strike team was able to treat and one that they were not able to get to. So in this picture, this was taken at the Fall Creek Falls waterfall overlook. And you can see the trees at the bottom, they could not be treated. They're on a cliff and it's really steep and they're really close to the water. They're missing a lot of needles and the coloration has started to change, whereas some of the hemlocks at the top, you can see they're a lot healthier and they have not declined in the way that the lower ones have.
Like Katie said before, this is the first year we've actually been able to treat TWRA land. And this actually turned out to be one of my personal favorite areas that we treated. It was Catoosa Wildlife Management Area. And we treated, I think, in 3 different areas. We have pictured here 2 of the nicer areas. And Catoosa, unexpectedly really, was one of the nicer hemlock areas that we found close to the streams. We saw a lot of canopy that was dominated by old growth hemlocks, which was really, really nice when we got used to seeing trees that were about 13 dBH on average. On this left photo, you can see Otter Creek, and it is lined by really tall, nice hemlocks on both sides. And in this center photo, you can see one of the taller hemlocks that has more foliage when compared to some of the other trees we were seeing. And you can get an idea of just how big and grand the trees were in that area. And then in this third photo, it was one of the cooler experiences that we had. We went out, I think it was week 2 of treating in Otter Creek, and we got to flag some trees in the snow, and everything was completely dusted.
The tree with the largest DBH that we have treated this season so far was at Cumberland Mountain State Park. It was 44 inches, and it was a little surprising to find that there because Cumberland Mountain State Park is not as big as some of the other state parks and other public lands that we've worked on this season, but it's had some really, really great hemlocks there. You can see the picture on the left. I'm standing between the large tree and a tree that is much closer, to our average DBH. The tree on my right is a 10-inch DBH, and we typically see smaller trees. So the 44 inches was a massive tree. And on the right, I'm trying to hug the tree and not even close.
Another part of our job with the HWA strike team is with biological control. We do go out and monitor for predatory beetles, Laricobius nigrinus and Laricobius ossicensis. And so far this season, we've released over 900 beetles, and we have only been out a couple times looking for beetles, but hopefully when the temperatures and weather conditions get more suitable, we'll be able to find some. At least we hope so. And we haven't had much luck yet. Here we are on the left releasing some at Fall Creek Falls. And here we were in the middle beating for beetles, and that we didn't know the perfect conditions yet, and it was super cold and we did not find any. And then there's Catherine on the right, and she has some hemlock woolly diligid ovisec on her glasses from getting in there.
So we'd be happy to take any questions, I guess, now.
That's great, Katie. Really great presentation, you guys. I think everybody here can say that they live through you vicariously as you're going about your days, treating these hemlocks and walking through those beautiful areas. I'm going to read some of the questions we have in the chat that have come up. Brant Miller, he says, "Hi, Katie and crew. I was over TWRA's hemlock efforts until 2014 when he retired. Which WMAs are you working in this year?"
I think we're just on Catoosa as far as TWRA land this year.
Yep. Sue Scholl, who works with Panther Creek Forestry, she asks, why the long orange pole when mixing the chemicals?
That may have been our collapsible bucket. We have a yellow collapsible bucket that we'll use to collect water from streams or trickles wherever we can find it where we are. And there's a long orange string tied to that so we can toss it out and to try and maximize the amount of water that we collect.
Neil White, he works with TDF, asks, how are the hemlocks doing at Bays Park? I helped treat them the first time around 7 years ago.
So Bays Mountain, they actually look really good, particularly the ones that have been treated. Yeah, we were actually pleasantly surprised how nice they look. It was clear which ones had been treated and which ones hadn't, but the treatment definitely works.
Yeah, I think that was like one of the better stands we saw this season.
And then Margot, said, sorry, we here in North Carolina told all of our HWA to head west because we're tired of them living here and feasting on our trees. And then you have kudos from Brant Miller and Sue Scholl and Jerry Fox. She says, thank you for your great work. Do you have a particular stem injection product to recommend for our hemlocks along our creekside? They are some of our oldest, largest ones, and I'm confused when I shop online. And if you don't mind, crew, I'll take this question. Jerry, there are a number of options out there. Hugo DeAngelis, who is going to be presenting this afternoon, he has a great presentation about that treatment that you see on your screen right now in that top picture. And that one is kind of the most quote unquote cost effective, but I'll have Hugo in his presentation tell you about that. Also, I don't really have a suggestion for tree injections due to the fact that most of the time it takes about anywhere from an hour to 4 hours to treat one single tree with tree injection. And it really does depend on how much money you want to spend on the injection system. Because if you want to spend somewhere around $3,000, there is an air jet system from ArborJet that you could look into, but it just varies in price and how long it takes. Sue says, thanks for answering. I use a little Nalgene bottle that's used only for getting water from the creek. Neil says, I remember treating some big trees that were still in good shape 7 years ago. Brant says there have been a number of beetle releases at Cadusa in the past years. In what condition are the hemlocks there?
I would
So the
say,
hemlocks. Go ahead, Hope. Sorry.
oh, okay. I would say, relative to a lot of the other areas that we've treated, they're in pretty good shape. We saw stands where the average DBH was probably close to 20 or so. There were a lot of big trees in that area, or at least specifically Myatt Creek, where we were.
All right, and then just so you all know, Dennis Testerman, he is doing some network inquiry today. We do have a lot of community people in Tennessee who have private land that really want to do some conservation work on their hemlocks. And one reason why I encourage, and Brant has encouraged using the Facebook page, is because it's a good opportunity for you all to reach out to your community members in the hemlock HWA management to support each other. So Dennis has posted a little information on his place in the chat. Does anybody else have any questions for the strike team and or what our adventures are for them this season? During the lunch hour, I'm going to probably take about 15 minutes for myself to, I'm going to stop recording now so I can save it, to show those who